I'm Walter Piehl, actually Walter Piehl Jr. I was born in Marion, North Dakota in 1942 and grew up in that area on a hard scrabble place with livestock and land, farm and land and lots of haystacks. And I liked to draw as a kid. Drew because there was nothing else to do in this little house we had with very little electricity in it, with a wind charger and batteries in the basement. Filled up tablet after tablet with cowboy images and cowboys and Indians and World War II stories that I was hearing because I had a relative in the service in the Philippines. And as far as what my family did, well, my mother was a housewife and a wonderful cook and mother, and my dad was a livestock dealer for the most part. He had farmland, he had pasture, he had stock of his own, but he also was buying horses off the farms when the farmers were all switching to tractors after the Second World War. They started mechanizing with tractors. Him loving to go to Miles City, Montana to buy bucking horses and to buy other horses, using horses. He loved the rodeo out there and the wildness of it and the cheapness of the horses to buy. He bought them and he partnered up with another guy from Fort Ransom, North Dakota, Olaf Berg. And they started, and Olaf had been producing rodeos with his own string of horses. My dad bought into it, started supplying horses and bought a string of bulls. And so we had a full-fledged rodeo production company that we could set up rodeos or supply stock for other rodeos, and this was all happening when I was in my late teens. So I just naturally evolved into the rodeo. I found out very early that I was not rough stock rider material. You know, when I went to college at Concordia, it's a church school, Lutheran affiliated church school in Moorhead, Minnesota. I was not a great student, I suppose, in high school, and the only reason I wanted to go to college was to get out of the haystack. I learned a lot there as an art student. The style of art that Concordia faculty were practicing didn't really fit me very well, but I learned a lot, and I probably should have transferred some other place at some point in my career, but I had such good friends and roommates, and I liked the camaraderie, so I stayed there for 4 years, got a degree in art education, and didn't get a job in teaching right out of school. So I said to my wife, you know, I don't feel that comfortable as an artist or necessarily as a teacher. I think I just want to go to graduate school. My wife would work, and I enrolled at the University of Minnesota and went there University of North Dakota to begin with. Went there for a couple of years, got a master's, and it was there that my focus turned into Western Americana subjects in kind of the manner in which I am practicing today. I had an instructor, Dave Brown, we called him Dakota Dave, said to me, I hear you go to rodeos on weekends and that your family's involved in it. He said, why don't you paint the rodeo? And I said, well, I wasn't sure that it was going to be an appropriate subject for a guy to be painting in college, because it just seemed like the other school, they wouldn't have liked that, the kind of romance, the kind of sentimentality that came with the Charlie Russell, that came with all of that aspect of life. And it just didn't seem like it would be appropriate. He said, look, there is no subject that's inappropriate for an artist to tackle. He said, but it would be far better for you to try to paint the rodeo and make something out of that than to continue painting those lame and insipid landscapes. Now, I had enough education. I knew what lame and insipid meant. I mean, that was a powerful hit. But at the same time that he said that, it was a rather liberating kind of thing. It was like taking the halter off and say, wow, go for it. So right after that, I mean, I started looking more into the Minoan bull leapers and bullfighting imagery and what kind of techniques and styles in art history could I use You know, I loved the work of Charlie Russell. I loved Remington's work and other illustrators of Americana that I saw, that I was exposed to, but not a lot because I wasn't around any place that had art galleries with that kind of thing. It was all in books or in illustrations in magazines and not even a lot of that. But I loved that. But I knew that was not, I embraced the idea of modern art. I loved that part of it too, but I loved representational work of Russell and, like I said, Remington. But how could I treat this in a new way? And I knew very well that at the university they were not going to allow me to paint as a disciple mimic of Charlie Russell. So I looked to what could I embrace in modern art that I could bring to the subject in my own unique vision. The Futurists, which is a group of young Italian artists. They were radicals, they were anarchists, they believed in war, they believed in destruction of museums and all of that. And what they brought to it was a style of painting. The design of their subjects were kind of treated cubistically, but they always had movement involved. And so they had these cubistic images of tanks moving across, and cavalry charges, and airplanes, and people moving. And one famous painting that is not futurist, but is a good example of that, is Duchamp's nude descending the staircase. It was painted in a cubist style, but it showed this cubist image walking down the stairs. And I thought, this is a place to start. The Italian futurists of the early 1900s was one group. But I found out after doing paintings where I tried to incorporate part of what they did, a rather cubist looking style of dissection of the figure and making that figure move, or that tank move, or that airplane move, or that horse move, that it looked too mechanical. It looked too much like a mechanical metal soldier walking. And this is a painting that from that time. It does not have the flow of what bucking horses and bucking bulls and the curvilinear kind of look that, and early on I could see that this more ratcheting kind of hard, jerky style did not serve my purposes. Some people liked the painting. I think it served a purpose. It taught me that this was not working for me. There's drawings that I did at the time, like this one, that the horse is rather static, but the rider's feet and hands move, and the horse's one foot is moving. But it's still in a very ratcheted kind of a clicky, clicky, clicky move. This one over here, a small one, this is a etching, and it has a little bit more of the curvilinear look. It doesn't have a lot of the futurist devices of multiple images, but there are several references to several feet here and there, a little bit up in here, but it has more curve and the softness, and yet I think it has the angular energy of the horse and rider in this particular pose. You know, I started out painting with, I guess, some acrylics in undergraduate school, but the painting classes were all in oil paints, and I tried painting with them, but I'm too impatient to wait for them to dry, and so it didn't take me long to evolve to acrylics, and that is my medium. But I may use collage. I love collage, torn paper, and I have a whole series, of paintings that are full of collage elements. So there's that, and I might use charcoal, and I might use oil pastel drawings in with it. And I was a watercolorist for a time too, but acrylics are just an extension of watercolor for me. And it was easy to be acrylic, it was easy for me to be very fluid in the sense of the action painters and abstract expressionism. And this is one that celebrates a local Great Falls cowboy, Paul Zarzyski, who's a world-known, renowned, rather semi-retired from performing cowboy rodeo poet. And his wife, Elizabeth Deere, or his partner, had an easel that she wasn't using. And they said, you know, could you use that easel? Would you like it? We're going to sell it. And I said, why don't I trade it to you for a painting? So it was a wonderful easel that Liz had. And I tried to make a composite painting using some photographs of Paul, several of them. He didn't have a lot of them, or I'd have used more. And the title of it is Pablo's War Bag for Paul, Liz, and their dog at the time, Zeke. And this is, you can see, kind of a duffel bag look underneath here, his rodeo spurs, his bareback riding glove hanging from his bareback rigging, and this would be his chaps with the PZ on it, and of course the spades here. So a bit of a celebration of the rodeo career of Paul Zarzycki of Great Falls. My history here at Paris Gibson goes back many decades, because I started with exhibits here back in the, I would say in the 70s and 80s, sending individual paintings out to exhibits, and then was asked to have solo shows, which I've had several of them here through the years. So I was very excited when Nicole asked me if I would work with her and do a rather major exhibit, a retrospective type exhibit, but an exhibit that also encompassed a lot of exactly what I'm working on now. But I also did lots of paintings that I tried to reference and to draw an analogy and a metaphor between the American cowboy and aspects from art history, like centaurs and minotaurs from the Greek mythology. And so this painting behind me the title of it is The American Minotaur and Less Common Greek Variety. There's a cowboy on a horse with his legs rather merged into the horse. And then at the bottom there is a frieze of Greek centaurs that are collaged on, cut out of a heavy illustration board. And it's not a painting that I like, because I'm very critical of it now. It was a painting that I did in graduate school, and it stayed with me for some years. An architect bought it, hung it in his house in Fargo, and when he wanted to downsize, he wanted to sell it back, so I traded him a smaller painting for it again. I'll talk about what I don't like about it. The cowboy's too big for the horse. I hate the horse's tail. It looks like a rat tail. I hate the horse's ears. They look like Batman ears. But I wasn't critical enough, or I didn't have the time or something back when I finished the painting and put it in an exhibit, and then it disappeared, was sold. And so I forgot about it until I got it back from him, and I thought, you know, this is a teaching exhibit. My exhibit of retrospective exhibit shows work from when I was an undergraduate, graduate school, and what I'm working on now. This is a good teaching painting. I can talk to people, students, because usually this show is seen a lot of times with tours of high school, elementary, and college students, so I can talk about paintings that I see as flawed. I think the painting's got rather powerful in terms of its contrast, but there are elements of it that if I were painting it over, I would change. I always felt that women were never represented well in the history of Western Americana. They were always in the background. Well, I tried to bring them into the foreground in any number of ways. One of the ways was that I used the analogy with Greek centaurs, which were all male centaurs. I started using female centaurs, and I had them interacting with minotaurs. And in the background is Pablo Picasso, who saw himself as a real minotaur. So oftentimes you would find him in the background of a painting where female centaurs, as in this one, were interacting with a minotaur. I tried to really give credibility to women's role in Western Americana, and one of them was women's role in rodeo, and I thought trick ropers and rope spinners would be a wonderful subject, and I did a whole series of paintings for several years called the Roping Fool series, which was named after Will Rogers and a movie that he made, I think in the 30s. It was, I thought, what a wonderful title, and so I used it as the title for that whole series. And here are cowgirls who are contract acts that are often seen in rodeo, spinning ropes and the walking merry-go-round. This is just stepping in and out, double loops spinning in the Roping Fool series. And then as we work our way down the hallway, there are other references to the women being the major subject in the pieces. I was invited to submit a painting to the University of it was at the North Dakota Museum of Art in Grand Forks, a self-portrait show they were doing. And I had a lot of work that I had to get done, and I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna I was working on a painting of two cowgirls in a very abstract expressionist background kind of way, and I just transitioned one of the cowgirls into me on horseback. So I think the title of this one is Self-Portrait with Show-Off Cowgirl, and that's from the Cowgirl Suite. That's from 2007. And this is what I mean by you move paint around, it drips and splatters, but there are still times when you can put details in and try to make those two things work. You know, just keep showing up. Keep plugging away. It's going to be frustrating. You got to work hard, and it doesn't come easy if you're not well connected, and I was never well connected. You're going to have to prove yourself and keep putting the stuff out there. Tons of rejections from art shows and other rejections in life, but if you have a plan and it's important to you, you just got to keep working at it. You just can't give up because it's difficult, and I think that's the main thing. You got to have heart. And I'm 83 years old. I'm kind of a survivor of a life of having to keep working at it from year in, year out. So that's my advice. You know, I really haven't thought a lot about legacy. I just think about making images that are important to me, and history that's important to me, and people that are important to me. But I hope my legacy is that I was a good family man, good father, good husband. I was a decent guy to friends and neighbors, that I was a decent painter, honest artist. And as I said maybe once before, my legacy is I like the idea that people will look at my work maybe decades from now, maybe even a few hundred years from now, if this world lasts long enough. And as the Egyptians said, to speak the name of the dead is to make them live again. And I would love to live again in some form or another, 200-300 years down the road.